Mermaids have always been our ocean's greatest mystery, with thousands of tales revolving around their striking appearances across the globe. I know we keep talking about mermaids, but what about the actual history behind these tellings, and the reason for their popularity? Well, this apparently takes us back all the way to Old Babylonian, as early as 1595 BC, that had begun the visual imagery of these supposed mermaids. In fact, a lot of the time it was mermen who were depicted, and not the maids, since the majority of the early images that were drawn of these creatures were believed to be Ea, the Babylonian god of the sea. Oftentimes, this god was shown to have a human head with arms alongside its fish body. Ea was the god of ritual purification, governor of the arts and incantation, and sorcery. Greeks and Romans also have their telling with their god Poseidon/Neptune. Assyria is actually the home of the first known mermaid stories, dating back to around 1000 BC. Their telling of the story is based on the tale that Assyrian goddess Atargatis had fallen in love with a mortal shepherd. Accidentally though, she ends his existence, and in her grieving she decides to toss herself into a lake and tries to turn herself into a fish. However, because of how beautiful she was, the ocean was like, heck nah, we're not concealing all that, and transformed her into a half person, half fish. Imagine being that beautiful, not even Mother Nature will knock you down a peg. Japanese soldiers that were stationed on the Kai Islands back in 1943 reported seeing strange, human-like creatures in the water. How they described them though was not like the usual beautiful aerial mermaid we're used to reading about. Rather, they described them as being 150 centimeters tall with pink skin, weird prominent spines sticking out from their heads, and instead having tails on the end, it was 2 legs. They saw them on multiple occasions, mainly near the beach or chilling in the lagoons, and even swearing they saw them playing there once. One mer creature was found to be doing a breaststroke along the beach's shallow waters. The soldiers had then asked the locals about these occurrences, to which they stated they were already used to seeing them around. They called them the orang ikan, which means human fish, and would often get caught in their nets when they'd go fishing. One day, the sergeant of the crew, Tero Horiba, was notified by the chief of the village that one of them had washed up on the beach. This was his retelling of what he saw. The face was said to be quite ugly, with human-like and ape-like features, a low, short nose and a broad forehead, and small ears. The lipless mouth was wide like that of a fish, specifically described like that of a carp, and filled with tiny needle-like teeth. The creature's fingers and toes were long and webbed. Horiba also reported that there was some sort of algae attached all over its body. The infamous P.T. Barnum, a man who was well known for certain controversial attractions in the 19th century. He too had also hopped on the whole mermaid phenomenon, to no surprise, and dubbed it the Fiji mermaid. Mermaid novelties were apparently a huge thing during this time, but he was the most famous out of all of them. In his autobiography, he describes this mermaid as an ugly, dried up, small specimen about 3 feet long. Its mouth was open, its tail turned over, and its arms thrown up, giving it the appearance of having passed in great agony. Despite its growing popularity, it was very much a hoax. Researchers speculated that his acclaimed specimen was nothing more than a monkey-salmon hybrid. This supposed mermaid had made its way around the world before landing in the hands of Barnum. It was supposedly created first by a Japanese fisherman as a joke, before it was traded off to Europe, and then being taken to America because someone actually thought it was real. Barnum saw this and believed it to be a great opportunity, making up fake news outlets and having someone pose as a doctor to prove its legitimacy. Mermaids have been spotted in Israel. However, their tales of mermaids depict a young woman who is half fish and only appears when the sun is setting. One person who reported their sightings, Shlomo Cohen, had this to say about his encounter. "I was with friends when suddenly we saw a woman laying on the sand in a weird way. At first, I thought she was just another sunbather, but when we approached, she jumped into the water and disappeared. We were all in shock because we saw she had a tail." These sightings became so frequent that the government of this specific specific town put up a reward of $1 million for someone to capture a photo of the alleged mermaid. Spokesman Nadi Zilberman stated, "I believe if there really is a mermaid, then so many people will come to Kiryat Yam. A lot more money will be made, more than 1 million. A very smart move to grab some more tourists." The problem with occurrences like these, though, is that it's much more difficult to identify a marine animal from above the surface. There's just too many variables to consider, especially when the sun is going down or if the water is choppy. With the right amount of imagination, anything could be considered mythological. She goes by many names: Mamba Muntu, Water Mother, Olasrien, the divine feminine water spirit that inhabits the rivers and oceans of Africa. Because of cultural significance, her body showcases a variety of colors and specific symbols that are rooted deep within its heritage. Red and white are a very popular color, symbolizing the importance of life, power, and our physical bodies, while white often represents the beauty, purity, and spirituality of life. Devotees of this deity, typically in the Nigerian tradition, will also rep the red and white colors in honor. Her beauty symbolizes self-awareness and vanity, and her serpent lower half is often depicted as some sort of transformation or protection. She also signifies life and healing. There are also some very interesting practices if you ever wish to seek her help or guidance. One involves a mirror and a few candles, specifically blue or white. You place the mirror in the center of your altar and arrange the blue and white candles in a triangle formation around it. Light the candles and then sprinkle sea salt in a circle around the setup. Stare into the mirror with intent and make your goals clear. Visualize what it is you're asking for and allow the candles to completely burn down. Other people in history had even journaled about their own experiences with mermaids: Christopher Columbus and another explorer named Henry Hudson. Christopher Columbus wrote this journal entry back on January 9th, 1493, describing his encounters with supposed mermaids on the day prior. He stated, "When the admiral went to the Rio del Oro, he said he quite distinctly saw 3 mermaids, which rose well out of the sea, but they were not so beautiful as they are said to be, for their faces had some masculine traits." Henry Hudson's journal entry was more poetic in his description. "From the navel upward, her back and chest were like a woman's, as they say they saw her, but her body as big as one of us, her skin very white, and long hair hanging down behind of color black. In her going down they saw her tail, which was like the tail of a porpoise, and speckled like mackerel." Despite the very flowery writing, what scientists speculated was that they probably saw manatees and mistook them for mermaids. I guess I can kinda see it, but not really. Other people shamed the hypothesis, though, and claimed that researchers were doing nothing more than doubting the so-called intelligence of these brave men. John Smith, yes, that one, may have also seen mermaids on his travels in 1614. His alleged statement goes, "Swimming with all possible grace near the shore, the upper part of her body resembled that of a woman's. She had large eyes, rather too round, a finely shaped nose, a little too short, well-formed ears, rather too long, and green hair imparted to her an original character, by no means unattractive. But from below the waist, the woman gave way to the fish." However, when historians and researchers went back to study this a bit more, there were a few inconsistencies with this. Supposedly, this was written while John Smith was in the Caribbean in 1614, but based on previous journal entries, Smith was there in 1607. One historian, von Scribner, who was the one to sit through all of John Smith's old recordings, stated he never once mentioned anything about a mermaid. To add on to this, Von found an article from 1849 that was written by a well-known author named Alexander Dumas, and dated about John Smith's findings happening in 1611. His article was word for word with John's supposed journal entry. Clearly, something happened down the line where someone must have seen this author's post and basically ran with it. One hot summer day in June back in 1967, a very shocking photo of a blonde mermaid was taken who seemed to be chilling on the beaches of Main Island. What would have been lost and debunked on the internet managed to cause quite the stir when such things weren't accessible. The photo was taken by a man named George Harrison and was then used in a report posted on the Daily Colonist, which stated, "Several witnesses said the mermaid had a large fish, apparently coho salmon, and one swore she had taken a bite out of it. Long, silver blonde hair and topless condition were generally agreed upon." Afterwards, she was known as the dimpled mermaid, since many of the men who were infatuated with her swore they recalled seeing dimples on her cheeks. A $25,000 reward went up in hopes that someone would catch this supposed mermaid, and then be showcased to a panel of competent marine biologists to actually clarify if she was a mermaid or not. The more this went on though, the more people realized that this was probably a prank being played on them, since researchers themselves started making jokes about having a specific boardroom for her and supplying combs that they would use for her hair. To this day, we have no idea who this person was that was playing the supposed prank, or if it was an actual mermaid. Do you have any mermaid stories you'd like to share? Let me know down below, and I will see you all in the next video.